So I just wanted to talk about the policy paper that we will have due at the end of the class. Sometimes in online courses, it's a little bit hard to remind you. I don't have lectures where I can say, hey, don't forget about your homework or don't forget about your policy paper. Online learning involves a lot of student self-direction, but I did want to remind you that there is a policy paper about the precede, proceed model. It'll be due almost at the end of the class, so on May 5th, 2018, and it's worth 50 points. So we have the midterm exam that will be coming up as well. There'll be a review the week before, and then there'll be the online midterm test that I'll be giving you. And you guys have been doing fantastic so far on all of your weekly reflections. And I've had some really good responses in the discussion board, so I feel like you guys as a class are really, really prepared for the midterm already, but there will be a review the week before as well. But one of the things that I did want to talk about was the policy paper, because it's also worth 50 points. So really what you're doing is you're writing a paper based on the precede proceed model. So in this class 302, we are learning about the precede part. In 303 and 304, you'll be covering the proceed phase. So that's like the implementation and the evaluation and the assessments, things like that. In this one, we're kind of looking at the factors that are influencing health and wellness. And then since this is a child development class, the target group is, of course, children or parents that are raising children. So that's kind of what our focus is. So in the research paper, I'd like you to go over the precede proceed model as a whole, but our focus and the majority of the class is going to be on that precede model. So the very, very beginning part and the factors that influence health and wellness. I want you to show your understanding of how and why this model is significant. So why have we chosen to base 3 classes in upper level classes about this model? What it makes it significant, what makes it successful, or if you don't think it's successful, you don't think it's significant, you could definitely write a paper about that. You just need to prove it with research and evidence that comes from peer-reviewed sources. So what do people tend to ignore or forget about when they are developing prevention and intervention programs as well? So is it outcome, is it factors, is it ecological, is it epidemiological? What do people, when they are setting up this program, what would be very easy to ignore or forget about prevention as well? And then I'd like you to connect the precede section with a real world case study or a policy paper. And it can be something we've already covered in the class. I just want you to go a little bit more in depth in it. So for this week, we had 2 different precede proceed model papers, one from Qatar and one from Iran. I've shown you other ones from Samoa. I've shown you ones from the United States. Just something that can link it to child development, to a real world case study or a policy paper, so that you have a little bit more of a real world application. It is a little bit short. It should be around 5 pages or 2,500 words. I know that for some of you that seems like a lot, and for some of you that seems like way too little. This is just a rough estimate. If you're a really effective communicator, you could do it in less. Or if you need to take your time because the real world case study that you've chosen is really wordy itself, then you might need more words. This is just kind of a guideline of what I'm expecting. And then, like always, use APA style, but from what I've seen from your article reflections already, you guys have a great kind of grasp on this. If not, the library is a great place as well. So more specifically, what I'm looking for in guidelines are an introduction. So please introduce the precede proceed model as a whole. So, you know, what does the acronym stand for? And then a brief background on how and why it's used, and an overview of its purpose as well. And then in the body, I'm really kind of looking for an analysis. So you're going to show your understanding of how and why this model is significant. And then, like I said before, what do we tend to ignore or forget when we're doing prevention and intervention? Sometimes it's attitudes and beliefs, sometimes it's education. What would be really easy, or what have you noticed when you're learning this model that people often forget? Then you're also going to discuss how the precede section is used for community health, well-being, or educational intervention for healthy child development. So this is our young children, infant toddlers through 10, 11, 12. So how could this section, so how could the precede section, looking at the factors, be used for community health and well-being for healthy child development? And then when you are giving these sources, you know, use like all good research papers and policy papers, please use multiple sources. You can compare and contrast them. And then at the very end, you're going to take a case study or policy paper, and you're going to present that to me to give it some kind of real world application as well. And as always with your organization and your APA style, the presentation is easy to follow, it's well organized, it's grammatically correct, it uses proper syntax, and from what I've seen from your article reflections, which were fantastic for the most part, you guys really understand how to write a paper. So kind of what you're doing is you're taking your article reflection and you're kind of making it longer, and instead of just doing one article, you're looking at pre-seed phase as a whole and then linking it in with an article that you've chosen on your own that really kind of has helped you understand the pre-seed proceed model. And then you're also going to summarize your findings as a conclusion and draw any appropriate conclusions as well. So just talking about the pre-seed model once again, you're kind of wrapping it up, talking about why we used it. And then if you didn't agree, if you don't like the pre-seed proceed model, that's where you could tell me about it. But once again, you would have had to defend it with some research and some evidence. This is the rubric that we'll be using. So I've taken this from an online source that has to do with writing. It's from the AACU, which is the American Academy on Collegiate University, something like that. But this is what they use for their research papers, and I adapted it towards this policy paper that we'll be writing. But this is just the rubric. So talking about organization, content, presentation, formatting, the type of content that you're developing, the sources and evidence that you're providing to me. And in the syllabus as well, I have an example of peer-reviewed sources as well. So if you have any questions about what's peer-reviewed or not, there's a little bit in there, and then the library is a great source for this as well. Using languages, your mechanics, and your syntax. So this just kind of gives you an example of the kind of high quality that I'm looking for, and something that I've already seen from you guys. So I'm actually really looking forward to reading your research papers at the end of this class. So email me. Do you need direction? Do you need focus or support? Please email me and we can just discuss your ideas. I teach a Child Development 100 over at Palomar, and it's actually a requirement of the course, and they get graded for it if they email me with their topic. A lot of times people have these nebulous, huge ideas like social development. I'm super into social development. Well, social development is huge. There's so many things. We can look at attachment. We can look at trauma. We can look at adverse childhood experiences. Plus, 0 to 18, 19, 20, which is what I teach in Child Development 100, is a huge age range. So typically we'll kind of have a conversation over email about what is the thing that you're most interested in, and maybe what's an age group that you're most interested in. Are you interested in middle childhood, infant, toddler, newborn, that type of stuff? So if you have a policy paper and you want to know if it's correct, or you want to have a discussion about the pre-seed some pre-seed factors and some enabling attitudes or something like that. So if there's a specific area that you want to look at more in depth, please email me and we can kind of have a conversation about this research paper. I just think it's a good idea, especially for college students. I know you guys are taking a lot of different classes, to have this in the back of your mind as we go through the course. And as I give you examples in the video lectures, those might be good things for you to look up and start to read those policy papers in order to bring it in as a case study for your actual research paper. So once again, any questions or concerns, please email me. Thanks so much. Have a great week. Bye.